Hey, Corey, there's a mummy in the shop.
Yes, but this one is unusual because here's the deceased riding on the back of a lion. That would only happen with a royal person. This is real.
Imagine bringing what looks like an ordinary old crown into a pawn shop, only to learn it may have belonged to an Egyptian pharaoh. It sounds like something from a movie, but incredible discoveries like this have happened before. Hidden treasures often appear in the most unexpected places, leaving experts scrambling to determine what is real and what is a clever fake. Today, we explore the astonishing story of a crown that stopped everyone in their tracks and raised one unforgettable question. What happens when a piece of ancient history suddenly walks through the door? The unexpected crown arrival. It all began on a seemingly ordinary day at the gold and silver pawn shop in Las Vegas, when a customer walked in carrying what appeared to be a simple, unassuming object. At first glance, the item resembled a weathered crown, its surface aged and worn, but no one anticipated just how extraordinary it would prove to be. The customer had found it somewhere outside the usual treasure trove of antiques, unaware of the historical earthquake he was about to unleash. The staff, accustomed to seeing unusual items, initially treated it as just another curiosity. But there was something different this time. The crown's appearance didn't immediately suggest royal origins. It looked fragile, a relic from a past world that time had nearly forgotten. Yet, beneath the dusty exterior lay clues that hinted at a much deeper story, one tied to ancient Egypt and its long line of pharaohs. This was no ordinary piece of costume or imitation jewelry. The shop's experts understood that verifying such an item would require a delicate balance of skepticism and open-mindedness. As the object sat on the counter, whispers rippled through the room. What if this really was a pharaoh's crown? A piece belonging to a civilization that ruled thousands of years ago. The skepticism was natural. After all, ancient artifacts in pawnshops often turn out to be replicas or clever fakes. Yet the intrigue grew stronger as the team considered how a genuine crown from antiquity could survive intact and make its way into modern hands. Could an item this old endure not only the passage of time, but also the scrutiny of collectors and experts? The possibility raised more questions than answers. How had the crown ended up in this particular pawn shop? Who had owned it before? And why had it come to rest on this small counter in Las Vegas? These mysteries set the stage for a careful examination, an unraveling of history hidden beneath layers of dust and doubt. With each question left hanging, the room held its breath, eager for the moment when the object's true story would emerge. Alongside the crown, other ancient treasures had passed through the shop's doors. Falcon mummies, still sealed in linen, battle helmets dating back more than a millennium. But none carried the weight of a pharaoh's crown. The rarity and significance of such a find were staggering to even the most seasoned staff members. This encounter, brief yet charged with potential, was more than just a transaction. It became a gateway to the past. As experts began their initial assessment, it became clear that confirming the crown's legitimacy would require more than a quick glance. Scientific tools and specialist knowledge were essential to separate fact from fiction. The question shifted from, could this be real, to, how can we prove it beyond a doubt? This subtle shift marked the beginning of a journey deeper into history, where ancient symbols and forgotten meanings awaited discovery. What started as a humble pawning of an odd piece evolved into a challenge to rewrite what collectors thought possible. The implications reached far beyond the pawn shop's glass counters, promising a connection to an ancient reign steeped in power and mystique. Yet, the full story was still locked away, waiting for the experts to unlock its secrets. The true nature of the crown and the story it carried would only be revealed with time, science, and keen eyes. This unexpected encounter with the crown sparked a fascinating blend of hope, curiosity, and suspense that would keep everyone on edge. As the process to uncover its history began, the question remained: what hidden history lay beneath this fragile artifact? And how would it reshape everything they thought they knew about objects from the reign of the pharaohs? The weight of that question lingered as the journey moved from first impressions to decoding the ancient language of symbols etched into the crown's surface. Decoding ancient Egyptian royal symbols. The crown's real identity started to sort itself out, sort of slowly, through a careful look at its symbols and materials. And well, they kind of said a lot about ancient Egyptian authority and conviction. In Egypt, royal crowns were never just pretty decorations. No, they were heavy-duty symbols of divine power and religious importance. Each carved or painted bit on these pieces had its own meaning, usually connected to governing, safeguarding, and the way the cosmos is supposed to stay in order. This one crown carried the weight of ages in those signs, so it quickly pulled you into a much older world. Egyptian crowns were commonly made in an extravagant way, mixing gold, valuable gems, and very precise inscriptions. This crown might once have sat on the head of a pharaoh, showing that sacred entitlement to rule Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt, or maybe the full unified Egypt, depending on context. Crowns like the Hedjat, the white cone-shaped crown of Upper Egypt, or the Deshret, the red crown of Lower Egypt, weren't merely royal attire, but visual declarations of who had sovereignty. And when those emblems were joined together, they turned into the Pshent, the double crown symbol that represents the union of the two lands. Past the political layer, the images and inscriptions on crowns often kind of echoed religious ideas. Little things, like the scarab beetle, were a signal for renewal and creation. But also birds, such as the ibis. They sort of meant wisdom and divine shielding. When these symbols show up, it usually means the crown wasn't just a proud status marker, it was an item loaded with spiritual power, like a bridge where the pharaoh is tied to the gods. That sacred angle made the crown feel less like a simple object, more like a talisman that controlled both the earthly and the heavenly kind of authority. Another clue, just as important, was craftsmanship, because the way these ceremonial crowns were made tells you a lot. The materials and techniques weren't casual at all. They pointed to the technical mastery of ancient Egyptian artisans. The crown's paint, gold leaf, or small embedded stones could give away the era and even a possible origin area. Some pigments and certain style choices are practically exclusive to specific dynasties and time frames, so researchers can date the piece with more confidence. Also, the feel of the crown mattered. Its weight, surface texture, and the slight signs of wear, all of that spoke directly to how it was used and whether it was authentic. So with both the iconography and the craftsmanship together, you get a clear scene, almost a snapshot, linking the crown tightly to Egypt's royal story. The symbols can act like a historical code too, waiting on specialists who spent years, really years, studying Egyptology to interpret them. Step by step, detail by detail, what first looked like vague legend starts to become a verifiable history, and experts can connect the design back to the influential figures who once wore it. Still, getting the meaning of those symbols was only half of the riddle. Things like the scarab, for instance, were everywhere, and they even showed up outside royal circles, a bit more casual, or at least non-ceremonial. Figuring out whether the crown belonged to a pharaoh or to some high-ranking priestess didn't just happen from one angle either. It took symbol reading plus hands-on material studies, along with careful provenance research. That's really where science and scholarship kind of came together, testing both the crown's physical substance and also its historical setting. And yes, the religious and cultural weight of the crown made it feel bigger than a mere artifact, but it also pushed the pressure higher, especially for authenticity and value. When so much was riding on the outcome, specialists couldn't let a gut feeling or a quick visual look decide it. Every symbol, every color too, had to be cross-checked against surviving records, and each material had to go through strict tests. The crown wasn't just an old object, it was, in a way, a bridge to a civilization whose legacy shaped entire continents. As their work continued, it became clear the crown's story was larger than anyone first thought. Even so, with all these hints, confirming what happened before still demanded specialized scientific methods, from elemental composition checks to examining wear patterns. And that was a necessary next move to make sure the crown was genuinely what it claimed to be. Decoding these ancient symbols brought the crown's aura to life, but science was about to reveal the truth beneath the surface. Experts' authentication. Authenticating an object as rare and historically significant as a pharaoh's crown demands a precise blend of expert knowledge and scientific technology. Specialists in antiquities don't just rely on gut feelings. They employ a series of tests that scrutinize everything from the metal content to the preservation of pigments. This exacting process is crucial in a market flooded with forgeries and replicas designed to deceive even experienced buyers. One common tool used in authentication is the X-ray fluorescence analyzer, which measures the elemental composition of materials without damaging the artifact. For metal objects like crowns, this test can determine whether the gold, copper, or other alloys used are consistent with those available to ancient craftsmen. In some cases, modern replicas fail these tests because their materials contain elements or impurities that would not have existed centuries ago. Such analysis was essential for confirming the crown's ancient origins. Beyond chemical tests, experts examine wear patterns, tool marks, and the overall craftsmanship to assess whether the item matches known examples from historical records. For instance, signs of aging such as corrosion or surface erosion need to look natural and consistent with long-term burial or storage. Artificial aging attempts often leave telltale marks under magnification that experts can detect. These details can tip the balance between an authentic piece and a convincing fake. Establishing an unbroken chain of ownership or documented discovery helps validate an object's history. In the absence of firm provenance, experts rely more heavily on scientific data and stylistic comparisons with authenticated artifacts. In the case of this crown, tracing its journey before arriving at the pawnshop was a challenge, but a vital component in building its credibility. Antiquities experts also lean on decades of experience and an intimate understanding of cultural context. They know, for example, that certain crown designs were exclusive to specific dynasties or ranks within the royal family. They also bring knowledge of ancient Egyptian religious practices, burial customs, and craftsmanship styles that inform their judgment. This depth of insight elevates their role from appraisers to historians and detectives. Despite all the tools, authentication is rarely a simple pass or fail. Experts weigh evidence and sometimes must reconcile conflicting signs. This complexity underscores why even seasoned professionals may take days or weeks to reach a conclusion, especially with objects as rare and historically vital as a pharaoh's crown. The goal is to be absolutely certain before declaring an item genuine. The crown's scientific validation had unlocked a story far richer than its initial dusty appearance suggested, setting the stage for a deeper understanding of what it truly meant to own a piece of ancient royalty. When authenticity meets market reality. Authenticity can make an old artifact kind of thrilling, but it doesn't always translate into value, right? In the antiquities market, things like rarity, provenance, surface condition, and how strongly collectors want it can matter almost as much as its age, if not more. Take, for example, an Egyptian scarab ring tied to the 18th dynasty. Even though it was genuine and roughly 3,000 years old, specialists noted that the scarab imagery had been manufactured on a large scale for both royal circles and everyday people. Since so many were made, there were millions. The market price ended up being only a few $100s. That was far from the $15,000 the seller expected, and it came as a bit of a surprise. So, the takeaway is simple enough. Authentic doesn't necessarily mean hard to find or particularly valuable. On the other hand, a few artifacts are, honestly, astonishingly rare. Take a battle helmet that dates back over 1,400 years, found in a condition that was massively rusted, sort of, and still it turned out to be an exceptionally rare survivor. Because it was so hard to come by, and because it stayed so well preserved, its price climbed into the tens of thousands of dollars. That same kind of thinking works with Pharaoh's crowns, too. Their worth isn't only about authenticity, it's also about how many similar pieces can be pointed to, how intact they remain, and whether the origins can be verified. Things without clear excavation notes often get met with suspicion, even if they're historically significant in every other way. There are also legal and ethical aspects that matter. In many countries, the sale or export of major antiquities is restricted, which then limits how available they are in the market, and that usually shifts the market value. So sellers frequently discover that historical importance and cash value are not really the same idea. And even when an artifact comes in at a lower price than hoped, its ability to link modern people with a distant past That sort of quiet connection is still a value, and it can't be neatly measured in dollars. From these market realities, the story expands to reveal some of the most astonishing ancient treasures ever found passing through pawn shops, objects whose histories and discoveries stunned everyone involved. Famous pawn shop discoveries of ancient artifacts. Pawn shops may seem like unlikely places to uncover history, yet they have produced some astonishing discoveries. One of the most famous was an Anglo-Saxon Spangenhelm helmet. Initially mistaken for an old football helmet, the rusted artifact was brought in with an asking price of just $750. Experts later identified it as a rare warrior's helmet dating from the 6th to 8th centuries, increasing its value to more than $12,000. Not every discovery proves genuine. A supposed Old Kingdom Egyptian pharaoh carving attracted attention at first, but experts noticed suspicious wear patterns and an inaccurate crown design. Further examination revealed it to be a modern forgery rather than an authentic ancient artifact, demonstrating the importance of expert authentication. Other finds have been far more convincing. A remarkably preserved mummified falcon, still wrapped in its original linen and housed in a sarcophagus, was identified as a sacred offering to the god Horus. Its excellent condition and religious significance gave it a value in the tens of thousands of dollars. Another notable discovery was an 18th dynasty Egyptian mummy mask featuring the white hedjet crown. Its detailed craftsmanship and preserved colors suggested royal or near-royal status, making it a significant historical artifact despite challenges associated with private ownership. Pawn shops have also seen authentic ancient Greek helmets from the Hellenistic period, and even genuine British Grenadier Guard uniforms complete with bearskin hats and regimental markings. These remarkable finds remind us that priceless pieces of history can appear in the most unexpected places, hidden behind ordinary appearances until experts reveal their true significance. And as with all tales of exceptional artifacts, the crown's final chapter would carry a legacy far beyond its original purpose, inviting us to reflect on history's enduring reach into the present. The crown's legacy and cultural impact. An ancient pharaoh crown is far more than a valuable artifact. It sort of stands for power, spirituality, and cultural identity, and it acts as a long-lasting emblem of ancient Egypt rulers and their connection to the divine. When something like this treasure suddenly shows up in pawn shops, you almost feel it's reminding us about how wild those historical objects' journeys can be across thousands of years. And even if we ignore the money part, these crowns still give a close-up link to one of history's most influential civilizations. They carry the craft, beliefs, and political systems of ancient Egypt, so you can get insight into a society that shaped the growth of culture, religion, and governance. By being preserved, the voices from the past keep reaching modern audiences in a way that doesn't really fade. Because of their significance, experts often argue that these artifacts belong in museums and cultural institutions, where they can be properly studied, conserved, and shown. Without professional care and documentation, important pieces of history might get lost or damaged, which is kind of a big deal. Questions of provenance and legal ownership still matter too, since many ancient artifacts were removed under disputed circumstances, and that keeps fueling ongoing debates about repatriation and cultural justice. Public fascination with pharaonic crowns keeps feeling really strong. Exhibitions, documentaries, and research projects keep pulling attention toward these extraordinary symbols of ancient authority. Their stories draw in scholars as well as enthusiasts, while somehow also deepening our understanding of Egypt's rich heritage. Ultimately, a pharaoh's crown is more than a simple ancient relic. It becomes a bridge between past and present, reminding us of our shared duty to preserve history and to honor the civilizations that helped shape the world we know today. From dusty pawn shops to centuries-old royal legacies, these crowns show us how history can surprise and inspire at every turn. Remember, authentic artifacts tell stories beyond their value. They connect us deeply to humanity's shared heritage. If you enjoyed this journey through ancient treasures, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more incredible stories from the past.